Okay, we are ready to begin. And good evening. Okay, we are ready. We are on learning the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We are up to Siman chapter 4. I hope to cover 4 and 5 tonight. Last time we learned, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We learned about getting dressed, how a Jew gets dressed in the morning, do it properly, modestly. We spoke about wearing a yarmulke and that whole topic. We spoke about not dressing or being, doing certain things, dress and other that we don't do because the non-Jewish people do it. That was in Siman Gimel. We are now up to Siman Dalid, the 4th and the 5th. Both of these have to do with cleanliness, and using the restroom and not davening and learning in a place where it isn't clean. So we're going to start with Siman Dalid, the 4th chapter. I'm not going to read most of it inside. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can read it inside. Different halachas in regards to using the restroom. Now, many of these halachas actually don't fully apply today because a lot of it was talking about places or times where we did not have restrooms as we have today. So people are using, using a pail or something behind the house or in the field or things like that. So there are a little bit of, and also the method of cleaning up a person was also very different back in the day. So that's why you have many of these halachas of being clean. So a lot of it doesn't apply today, but obviously, like everything, it's important to learn. Some of it does apply today as well. Just mentioning, you see different directions, where to sit, facing which direction. These things don't apply today because we're not outside. We are doing something indoors. But the general idea is, the Torah says that a person should be clean, and a person should not, a person should not do anything unhealthy. A person should not hold in, and the person has to relieve themselves. We're going to jump to Halacha 6, actually the last halacha. Interesting story, and this is something it's kind of hard, a little hard to wrap your head around this. But this is the story that the Gemara says. It was the student of Rabbi Akiva, I think. Or was it Rabbi Akiva to his teacher? I think it was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Listen to the story. You can say, take it or leave it. He wanted to study Torah. So what does he do? He's looking at me as if it's worse than that. What does he do? He goes and he hides into the bathroom of Rabbi Akiva's house. He wants to watch to see how does the Torah tell us to use the bathroom. Now, just like the idea, remember we spoke about it a few times, that how the Torah tells us every little tiny thing. Even using the restroom, the Torah tells us how to do it properly. So Akiva sees him there. Akiva says, "What's going on?" Excuse me, what's going on over here? So famously, he says, "Toirahi v'lilmoid ani tzarich." It's Torah. I'm here to learn. I want to know what's the right way to do this. The Gemara said that one of the things that he noticed is about using, not using your right hand, the same hand that you put on tefillin with. That's not the hand that we use to clean ourselves. Interesting, just an interesting story about how we see that everything in the Torah is everything in our lives, even the most simple, mundane thing, is really a halacha in Torah. But I want to read just the last halacha 6. You can read the rest of it inside for yourself. Halacha 6. Every time a person uses the restroom, or some water, even a little drop, after the person uses the restroom, a person has to wash their hands, and you have to make a bracha, asher yatzar. It's actually one of the most beautiful blessings. Asher yatzar, you're familiar with the bracha asher yatzar? We say it in the morning blessings, and every time you use the restroom, asher yatzar. Some places we have a little sign. Growing up in school, we always had a big sign next to the restroom, asher yatzar. And asher yatzar is a blessing for Hashem, who opens opens up our, is that English? Crevices. Our, what's it called? Orifices. God forbid, if we don't have that, it's very, not only painful, it's very dangerous. It said that one of the plagues that Pari got, or Abimelech was it, when they took, either, I forget who it was, it was Sarah, is that they couldn't relieve themselves. It's extremely painful and extremely dangerous. So
it's pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. People have, people go through it. Constipation, whatever it is. So that's one of the brachas that we say after we use the restroom. And there's no limit, right? A small drop, we're ready to say this bracha asher yatzar. Now, washing your hands, it doesn't say how to wash your hands. So the minhag is that we try to wash our hands like we do, like with a washing cup, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But definitely washing your hands with water. If we don't have that, if we don't do that, even just washing hands in the water, and we make it a bracha.
Quick question on
Yeah.
that. So there's been situations where I've been away from
Yeah.
But then I'll be approaching lunch or a snack or something like that. But I wash my hands with like normal soap water. Is it permissible to say a bracha about having washed?
Yeah.
In that?
Yeah. You can say a bracha even not washing your hands. You have to wash your hands with something. So if you have wipe it on a paper towel, on plastic, on wood, just to kind of wash your hands. You don't have actual, as we see later, if it's actual dirt on your hand, you shouldn't be making a bracha. If your hands are clean, then you could make a bracha. Ideally, we wash our hands with water. That's the best way, the best method of washing your hands.
By the way, since our first Halacha this year, I went to Kosher Cajun and I bought a negavasa. So every night, every day, I don't have to walk the 4 amos.
That's great. That's great. That's amazing, actually. Now, if the halacha continues, if someone Hitul Mayim went to the restroom and he forgot to make the bracha asher yatzar, and then he went to the restroom again, so do you make one bracha or 2 brachas? Do you say asher yatzar twice? The answer is no. You say it once. You don't say asher yatzar once. Question is, what happens if I went to the restroom, I did not make the bracha asher yatzar, and then I remembered 20 minutes later, an hour later, oh yeah, I went to the restroom, forgot to make the bracha. Do I make the bracha now? But if you do not need to use it, if you still do not need to use the restroom, then you can make the bracha whenever you remember. But if you already feel, I kind of have to go again, then you only make the bracha after you go.
What if you're unsure that if you made it or not?
Safek brachis lahakol. Anytime there's a doubt if you made a bracha or if you're obligated to make a bracha, we're always lenient and we don't make the bracha.
Okay.
That's the general rule in making brachas. Now it concludes the halacha. Someone who drinks a sam, what's a sam? Like a medication or a pill or something. How does it translate over there? That cause what? Laxative that causes you to like a loose stomach, causes you to use the restroom, and he knows that he's going to have to go maybe numerous times. So then you don't make a blessing asher yatzar until the last time. And I think the same thing applies if someone has a loose stomach, and every few minutes they're running to the bathroom. So again, not necessarily we make a bracha every time, because knowing that it's not really, it's an ongoing thing. So therefore, you only make the bracha asher yatzar when you conclude all the way at the end, the last time.
If you're, I know this is kind of opposite, but if you're in that kind of a state, should you forgo davening like that? So
we'll talk about that when it comes to davening. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, definitely tefillin is a question if you should put on tefillin if you know you might not be able to handle even a few minutes. Even if you want to put on tefillin, say Shema, take it off. It takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You might not be able to have a clean body for 5-10 minutes. You might not be allowed to put on tefillin. But we'll get to that. I think either halacha 10, 5, 5, or later on. Now, generally, the way we see a restroom, there's a few things about halachas of a restroom that are not in the kitzur. The way we see a restroom is that it's not a clean place, not just physically when there's actual dirt, but it's just not a place of cleanliness. And therefore, there are certain things that we don't do in the restroom. So, for example, we don't say words of Torah. We don't daven in the restroom. We don't wear tefillin in the restroom. We don't bring in a Torah book into a restroom, right? I want to read the 13 Principles of Faith. I'll use no. You don't bring in Torah books, holy books, into a restroom. And in fact, it says that you're not even supposed to think words of Torah in a restroom. Now, you're not going to waste any time. So what do you do in the restroom? So they say that there are some great Torah scholars that learned languages. They had a dictionary. And they learned languages, you learned math, they learned any other secular, history. You can have any other secular, obviously, if it's a non-kosher book, we shouldn't be reading it anytime, but like a non-Jewish book, you can read a novel, but you can also read something more, it can be productive. Anytime. Business related, right? Anything you should be, it could be productive. I'm not talking about a book necessarily. I'm also talking about even your thoughts. Even your thoughts, it says. Unless you really, really can get your thoughts out of your mind, it's fine. But I'm saying generally, if you're able to control your thoughts, you're not supposed to even think words of Torah in a restroom. Another halacha that the Shulchan Aruch talks about, the in the Kitzur, and it's something that many people don't know, and that is that in a restroom, you are not supposed to speak. You're not supposed to talk in the restroom. Hey, what's up? Two people are in the restroom. Not just in the stuff. Not even you're washing your hands, right? You're in the room of a restroom. You're not supposed to speak.
What if you have like a digital? Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you need to, you have little kids or an emergency. I mean, of course, you're allowed to speak. But if it's a separate room, it's a separate room. It's a separate room. Question is, well, we'll get that in a second. Like using that thing, I think we'll get back to that.
What's the reason for that talk?
What's the reason for not talking?
To talk about Torah?
No, that's interesting. Interesting. What's the reason? I'm not sure what the reason is. It says maybe it's not modest. I guess it's the place that you do your thing, and it's not something that they kind of hang out. Back in the day. Who? Oh, very nice. Well, welcome. Yeah, Richard here. Joining us. Oh, so we're talking about the laws of restroom. That's the topic this evening. So we're talking about that. It doesn't say this in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, but it's mentioned in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch that we're not supposed to speak unless it's a need, it's an important something. But just hey, well, how are you? Good to see you, or whatever. We don't speak in a restroom. Obviously, if you have children or things like that, obviously we're allowed to do that. What it does say, interestingly, in the Shulchan Aruch is that back in the day where the restroom was out there in the field and there wasn't like a men's bathroom and a women's bathroom, it was just like a pail or something, a little stall somewhere for privacy. So it says that that women, when they're in the restroom, they would speak to each other out loud. Just that if there are other men outside, they should hear, hey, there are women in there, let's not go in. So that's what it actually says in Shulchan Aruch. But generally, if it's not like, two people meet in the restroom, ideally, it's better to refrain from speaking. Another thing is that we don't bring into our restroom is food. We don't bring food into our restroom. This is not a halacha, it's not like forbidden, but it is something that is a custom that we don't do. We don't eat in the restroom, and we don't bring food into a restroom. So if you're chewing gum or if you're eating something, better not to chew while you're in the restroom, not to bring it into the restroom. I think Adam Strauss always says that one thing he learned from his great grandmother is that it's like the worst thing you can do is bring food into a bathroom. So
can I say something funny?
Yes, please.
Okay. Trying to think of the Rav. I want to say Rav Yaakov, remember? But somebody had questioned whether or not one of the what we would consider to be a wonderful Jewish newspaper nowadays, but 50 years ago there was Jewish newspapers. Right? So somebody asked a question as to whether or not somebody could bring this particular newspaper into the restroom. Rabbi Yaakov answered, I'm not sure you could bring it out of the restroom.
Okay. On a more serious note.
If you bring food into your bathroom, can you bring it back out and eat it?
Good question. So what if you did bring food into the restroom? Now does it become treif, right? Does it become contaminated? Are you allowed to eat it afterwards? So it brings over here, the Sefer over here brings that there were some great Rebbes that actually would be careful that they wouldn't even eat it afterwards. Even if mistakenly I brought some food into a bathroom, now sure the people wouldn't eat it. But that's but that's not regular, right? But that's like an extra chumrah. The halacha, you could eat it. You brought some food into the bathroom, you took it out, it's definitely fine. Question is, what about food in your pocket? So generally there's this concept of kis b'soich kis, which means two coverings, two wrappings for something. So for example, I have what food we're talking about? We have a muffin that's in a bag, and the bag is in my pocket, so it's covered twice. So some say that you're able to bring food if it's double covered. Kiss b'seich kiss, you can bring it into the bathroom. L'chatchila, we try to be machmer. We don't bring, if you have food in your pocket, better not to bring it into the bathroom. Let's say you have a candy, you have a sucking candy, or you have a whatever, right, in your pocket. If you're able to take it out before you go to the bathroom, it's better. But if there's definitely a lot of room to say. Lots of people say that l'chatchila you couldn't bring it into the bathroom if it is kiss b'soich kiss. But if it's not kiss b'seich kiss, also we don't do it l'chatchila. But with the evidence, generally we say that you are able to eat it.
What about a small pocket siddur that is in your pocket?
And the same thing applies to a siddur. Yeah, same thing applies. If it's double, if the siddur is wrapped or it's in a bag and then the bag is in your pocket, the same thing applies to tefillin even, right?
Tefillin, I didn't know. The siddur, somebody told me that's the reason those little siddur have a little plastic cover on this, exactly that.
Okay, interesting.
Tefillin, I didn't know.
So the question, what happens with me a lot is that when you're traveling,
right,
you have your tefillin with you in the airport, and you need to use the restroom, right? If you're traveling with someone, you give them, hey, you wash my tefillin and wash my. But if you're alone, what are you going to do? Right?
It's in the bag.
So you have the tefillin itself is usually in a plastic case.
Yeah.
The case is in your tefillin bag. Sometimes your tefillin bag is in your tallis bag, and your tallis bag is in your suitcase, right? So according to halacha, there's no issue with bringing that in. So if you're in a place where there's no other choice, you have to leave it somewhere in the restroom while you're using the restroom. It's okay. Obviously, if you're able to give it to someone, it's better not to rely on that. But if you know other choice, definitely is allowed. Yeah. Now, we mentioned earlier about the sink, the faucet in a bathroom. So because of this, this idea that we have there's some type of tumor, some type of impurity in a bathroom, even when it's clean and all that we don't bring in food, we don't speak different potato. So some have a custom that we don't use the faucet for negavasser to wash our hands. We use the kitchen. And in fact, some go so far, as in my family, the custom is that we don't even fill up our negavasser from the faucet in the bathroom to be used outside of the bathroom. So growing up, we used to hate it because we were always sleeping upstairs. We got to fill up a negavasser before we go to bed. We got to go downstairs, fill it up, and go back upstairs and put it near our bed before we went to bed. Now, at one point, and this would happen after I left the house from my younger siblings, my parents renovated upstairs, so they put an extra faucet outside of the bathroom upstairs. So it was a lot more convenient to fill up negavasser at night because it's right there. But ideally, it's better to fill up from a faucet, a laundry room, or something that's not in a bathroom. Now, if you have a bathroom where you have a separate room where the sink is not in the same room as the actual toilet, then that's totally fine.
Should be careful to close the door.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a separate room, I'm not sure how careful you have to be because it's a separate room. The question is, I was in someone's house, and I was staying there overnight for a reason, and then I come to the bathroom and I see that their curtain, the shower curtain, was kind of hanging, covering over the toilet. I'm like, what's going on? I thought maybe he's like, oh, my kids do it. He tells me my kids do it when they fill out the nagalas there. So they kind of cover the toilet. Now, again, this is all custom. There's no halacha. Obviously, even if the toilet is there, you can fill up from the sink. So I guess it was actually like, let me just cover it and make it as if it's like a separate room. So listen, if you're lazy, you're lazy, and it's fine. You can fill up from the upstairs bathroom sink. But ideally, it's better to do it from the kitchen.
You can say brothel and it's a resort. Like it's considered a separate room altogether.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that also over here, where there's like a bathhouse, where there's different rooms of a bathhouse. What is the halacha? Depending on how we treat that room, do we treat it as a bathroom? Do we treat it as a regular room in the house? And based on that is whether we're allowed to say words of Torah and things like that, pray in that room. So we'll get to that in Simmons. Hey. Okay.
To get kicked out, he was not going to invite you back. Okay. So, and this you may have already covered, and it may be different the way that your family learns and my family learns. But somebody explained to me once that what we consider to be a bathroom nowadays would be because of the fact that when the toilets are operational, etc., like that, every single time it's used, the reason that a person uses the toilet is the issue goes away, hopefully it's operating properly. As a matter of fact, there's water that comes to cover everything up, and there's a cover in the toilet. So the person really needs to say a bracha in the bathroom. They really, what we consider to be bathroom now would not be considered bathroom previously. But I can understand. So, but then you have a different problem, which is that sometimes, regardless of the fact that the facilities may have been used, but sometimes the physical atmosphere in it is not pleasant, regardless of whether the circumstances, whether it's covered or not. So does that really hold true? That it in fact really doesn't have the din of being a latrine?
There's definitely room to rely on that heter. It's a heter, but there's, I mean, I'm looking over here. It quotes the different shuvas, different rabbanim who do mention that. And like I said, l'chatchila is better not to rely on it. But if this is what it is, this is the situation. We could rely on saying that today it's different, it's clean, it's covered, and therefore we could, like I said, even I wouldn't go as far as saying davening in there, but I would say using that saying for negavats there or speaking in that room. There's definitely room to be lenient.
So we don't go by the Rav, which is Rabbi Richard Mayer.
No, this is it says here that there's the yesh lahakal. He writes over here. You can be mekel and say that it's not completely a lot of the halachas don't apply, but we definitely machmer. Now, just talking about speaking, I'm just thinking out loud. In a commercial bathroom, right, where there are stalls, there may be also room to say where they are allowed to speak in the bathroom because you're not speaking in the stall, you're speaking in the bathroom, which is almost like a separate room.
I would think actually, not that I came here to argue with you, but I would think exactly the opposite. I would say in your home you could speak, but in, let's say, the airport, and let's say there's 12 places in there at any given time that actually may be being used.
It's not so much about being used. The question is, like, are you in the room? Are you in the room where people are using the restroom, or it's just a room that has other rooms in it? So
the partition stalls are like their own room.
Right. Again, these are reasons to, if we're looking for leniency, these are reasons to leniency. So the better not to speak, but I'm saying it's definitely not the same as being actually, like, definitely while someone's in the stall, that's when you definitely should not be speaking, unless there's a need for it.
The Goldbergs gave you a fake address. Sure, but you're still a Halacha here.
I saw you wandering down the block last week.
Only enhancing this.
No, this is what we like. We like conversation. Dave is always so timid to ask any questions. Okay. That's Rob, you with us?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
You guys need to come over here one night.
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Is High with you?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's here. Mhm.
I'm keeping him up.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
Yeah.
So he can learn.
Give him some of this.
Yeah. Evan Williams. Oh.
Okay. We're going to it's chapter 5. It's chapter 5 is a little bit of a longer chapter. It's 17 halachas. We're not going to read all of them inside, but we'll hopefully gloss through the ideas of chapter 5. So this is Nikoyin Hamakim Medavar Shavush. We have to make sure that the space, the place that we have, the room, the area that we're going to daven or learn has to be clean. Kisiv, it says in the pasuk, Halacha Aleph. You should cover up any of the whatever was relieved of the dirt, because Hashem is there within your camp.
Mhm.
So from this we learn out that wherever Hashem is there with us, especially with davening and learning, when we're dealing with Davar Shabbat saying Shema, davening, learning Torah, or anything similar, the machana, the camp, the area has to be kaddish, has to be holy. There should not be any tsoya megula sham. There should not be any how you say tsoya? Filth. Filth that's revealed over there. And a person should not see a devar erev, which is an immodest part of a person's body. Also should not be seen when a person is davening or learning Torah.
I have lots of questions on this.
Yes.
Okay, here goes. All right, number one. So for instance, where I'm davening, a lot of times where I daven is separated slightly, like by a countertop from the kitchen, and the kitchen has a kitchen garbage can. But most people nowadays, us included, we don't, if something's really stinky, fish, whatever like that, we don't leave it in the kitchen garbage, we immediately take it outside. But you still have the garbage can there, which subconsciously, it's not a clean thing, but it's not particularly filthy, dirty, and smelly. So if I can see the garbage can, is that a problem? If I can see it but not smell it, can I still daven in that room, or do I have to actually make an effort to put the garbage can outside of where I'm davening?
Okay, so I think when we say tsoya, we are mainly referring to the tsoya of a human, or an animal. Right? So we're not talking necessarily about a smelly, rotten leftover from dinner, yesterday's dinner that we threw out. That's not so. Now, if there's a terrible, terrible odor, that's something else. But this is a general idea. When we say tsoya, that's what we're referring to.
Okay.
So we're talking about the dirty diaper, or something like that, or even in the street where you have some animal waste that's on our driveway or for some reason, or we're walking to shul and sometimes we're passing by. Today we have all the ducks, and sometimes, like my neighbor, terrible odor of duck waste all around his driveway. Right? I probably should not be davening while I'm walking by his driveway. Right? Things like that. This is what we're mainly referring to. Now, Halacha Beis tells us. We have a lot of questions, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. That not only, just like in the bathroom, it's not just only speaking, but it's also thinking. Divrei Torah is also should not be done unless the whatever it is covered and there's no odor. Now the rest of Halacha Beis, Halacha Gimel, talks about different types of tsoya, and again, a lot of it also applies to today with everything's in the bathroom. It's kind of different, so I'm not going to read it inside. Halacha 4 tells us that any time that there might be a suffix, might be a doubt, well, maybe this might be a place that there is some tsoya, a person has to go and check it first to make sure that there is no tsoya, and then only after that should they be allowed to daven or learn in that place. An infant, and guess that you're here now, you also understand my language over here with the infant, because it's been a while since you had an infant in your house. But so at what age do we say that this infant's waste, this infant soya, is considered dirty, and therefore we cannot daven in front of it? So
no longer nursing.
Okay, so let's see what Halacha 5 says. Tinoik sha'achedim b'yomav yichedim lachol kazayis mini dogim. An average baby from the age when most people his age are able to consume a kazayis of grain, an ounce of grain, roughly. What's that age? I'm not even sure myself. 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. When they start eating some oatmeal, I'm saying, an ounce of oatmeal is not a lot.
And we all know that switch in the diaper smell.
Exactly, right? So from that age, from that point on, is when their tsoya and their pee is considered tsoya, and therefore we should not daven or learn in front of it. However, it says b'toy v'yashar l'chatchila, it's even better to distance ourselves from the tsoya of a child from 8 days old. 8 days old. And the Alter Rebbe adds that if it's not a big tircha, it's not a big deal, you should try to even a child from 1 day old. Which means, ideally, the Alter Rebbe says, any tsoya from any child. If you don't have a place, okay, up to 8 days. After 8 days, it's better to distance yourself when you daven. But if not, you have up until whatever it is, a few months, that for sure, half a year or so, then you have to be more careful. Halacha 6 tells us that the tsoya of a human being it's considered tsoya no matter if it has a bad odor or not. So even if you're walking outside and there's a dry tsoya from a dog or from a cat or from a duck or whatever it is, even if it's dry and there's no odor, you still should not be near it when you daven or when you learn. I'm sorry. Let me just clarify that. A human tsoya or a cat nemia is a what? I'm not sure what it is. A measle and a certain type of, is it an English hen? They say it's maybe like a turkey or something like that.
It does say turkey.
Or the Alter Rebbe adds also from the donkey. Those are the ones that even when there's no odor, you always have to separate, you distance yourself from it. However, the rest from other animals, I guess, including a dog or things like that, for those we do not have to, if they don't have a bad odor, you do not have to distance yourself from it. Okay, we're not going to go into all the details of the different types of tsoya and how far you have to go for it, and et cetera, et cetera.
Stay away from the soda.
Exactly.
So are we, can we go back to is that still coming up, or do we?
We're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
I'm going to skip now to Halacha 12. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, if you have time, you can learn everything in between, but it's just going into great detail of different types of tsoya and how far you have to distance yourself and what happens if you by mistake daven and later you found tsoya. Okay, it's not so relevant on a day to day because today, it's not such a common thing. So that's why I'm kind of skipping it. Halacha 12.
So here's my particular question.
About Erva?
Yeah.
We're going to get to Erva
Okay.
in a moment, yeah. Halacha 12. A Beis HaKisei, a restroom, even if it has walls, but it's clean. I guess typically a restroom in our house or in our shul. So we still have to distance ourselves from it 4 amos.
The person shouldn't be saying Tehillim in the foyer there.
No, from the stall itself.
Okay.
From the stall, meaning you shouldn't be right next to a stall. If there was, again, it's not so.
The place where the
Right.
where we come from.
Right. Right. Again, now that I'm reading it, I'm not sure if this really applies to the way our structures are built with its total separate room. So I'm going to skip it for now as well. And now I'm going to Halacha 14. Halacha 14 is very much relevant to the way we have it today. A bathhouse. A bathhouse is not necessarily a place that you have a restroom, but it's a bathhouse. A place that people undress and wash themselves. So that is also a room. That's also a place that you're not allowed to speak or even think words of kedusha. You're not supposed to mention Hashem's name, even in English. So saying God in a restroom is not something that we should be doing, or in a bathhouse. A bathhouse could also be a mikvah, right? And a mikvah is also considered a bathhouse. There's a discussion over here whether you're allowed to say the word shalom. Hey, shalom aleichem, right? Because shalom is also one of the names of Hashem. So some say that you shouldn't mention God's name. You shouldn't even say shalom. Some say no. When I'm saying shalom aleichem, I don't mean God's name. I mean peace unto you, right? So therefore, you could be makel, you could be lenient, and you could say shalom aleichem in a bathroom or in a rest house or in a bathhouse. Now, the Alter Rebbe says over here that there are the bathhouse in those days were built with like 3 separate rooms. One room was the actual bathhouse. That was where they had showers in those days, but that's where they actually wash themselves. So that's where the mikveh is, or that's where the showers are, the actual bathhouse. Then there was the middle room where people would kind of get dressed and undressed. So some people there are dressed, some people there are undressed. Then you have the first room where people just that's like the lobby, or that's like the people room they walked in, where everyone over there is always fully dressed. So in regards to the first room where people are always dressed, over there you can for sure you could dive in and say any words of Torah. In regards to the third room where people are always undressed, over there for sure it's like a bathroom. You're not supposed to say anything or even think of any words of Torah. In regards to the middle room, over here it says like this. You're allowed to think words of Torah. However, you're not allowed to say Shema, daven, or actually speak words of Torah. Okay, that's that room. Why? Because it's not a room it's not like the bathroom. It's not the room that it's not the bathhouse itself, but it's a room that people are undressed in, and it's designated for that. So it's not such a modest thing to do to say words of Torah in this room, even if everyone's dressed at the time.
So why are we differentiating like what kind of words Torah you could say and you can't?
Because it's not kind of words. It's the thoughts, which are not so overt. It's not like so thoughts of Torah is allowed, but actually speaking words of Torah and davening with your mouth, that is forbidden. Okay. So going back to the question about having like a bathroom that many houses have today, that the actual toilet is in one room and then the sinks are the faucet is in another room. So it depends how we treat that room. If that's a room that we kind of close the door and we use that room as part of the bathroom, we're taking a shower, we're also undressed in that room. So then that room is a room that we shouldn't be speaking words of Torah or davening. But if it's a room that we never really close, it's like this is only the room that we just use to wash our hands or mouths or faces, but we don't really undress in this room. So then it'll be like a regular room in the house where you are allowed to say words of Torah.
If someone comes to you and starts the conversation in the bathroom, like they're unaware of this halacha, would it be better to just not respond? Or are you there to not try to embarrass them and say that and engage in conversation?
Well, it really depends on the situation and who the person is. But if it's not a very important conversation, you can just kind of nod, say, it happens actually pretty often with me. Let's say people come to shul, and I am during the parts of davening where you're not allowed to interrupt. So after Baruch Shamar, you're not allowed to speak, right? Someone comes to shul, they don't know anything. They're maybe the first time in shul. Hey, how are you? Right. So usually you want to engage them and invite them in to the shul. You're not allowed to speak. So usually I kind of nod, or I kind of make conversation with my eyes and my face and my hands. And then as soon as I'm after Shemona Esrei, I'm allowed to speak. I'll go over to them and say, "Hey, how are you?" I might explain myself, or maybe if they didn't even notice, I'll just kind of make sure that they feel welcome. So, and the rest of it can be the same thing. It really depends on who the person is. Something you could kind of answer, just very short answer, condensed answer. Then afterwards say, "Oh, it's in the restroom. I don't want to really prolong the conversation, but you can continue talking. If you feel that you're able to just like say, hey, let's just continue. You can say that. It's not like right, yeah, right. It's not like a forbidden thing that it's just more like not a modesty. You can say, hey, let's talk outside.
Right. So that's extreme sensitivity that you tied into that question, because like the whole like on Tisha B'Av, we don't greet people in the morning, right? We wait until the afternoon. So what you just happened to is there's extreme sensitivity. If you think about it, in previous generations, people were huge. Okay, the idea that I'm going to sit here and think about Nintendo, crazy. 500 years ago, their mind wasn't absent from Torah. Your mind was pure. So it's a question to not think about Torah or to not think about Shalom. Right, this is not even a question. People's minds were focused on Torah, life, and mitzvahs, right? On the other hand, somebody comes into the bathhouse and they want a greeting from you. You want to give them, right? Your greeting is very precious to that person. We're talking a long time ago when people pure in their hearts were pure, and that person could be really offended if they said shalom to you and you didn't say shalom back, right? So obviously these aren't trivial questions. These are important things to consider or not. It's amazing.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Well, now we'll speak a few minutes about erva. We started the simon about the plate has to be clean, and also it has to be modest. You can't see any parts of a person's body which are not considered modest, not considered tznius. So we have three seifim on this: 15, 16, and 17. Halacha 15. Also, the daber v'teira ukdusha neged erva ben shaloi ben shel acher afilu mikatan uktana. It is forbidden to speak the words of Torah or kedusha of daven in front of an erva. An erva, like I said, is a part of the body which is usually covered, whether it's his own, your own erva, or someone else's, even a child. And the Alter Rebbe adds over here that some people are more lenient, that a young child up to 9, you could be mekel, you could be more lenient to say a young child that's not fully dressed properly. You could be mekel, you could be lenient. You're allowed to daven in front of them. The only time that you're allowed to say a bracha when an erva is open is when? At a bris, exactly. Moil makes the bracha, even though the diaper is open. The Alter Rebbe actually adds over here, and this is not really the custom that we have, but some people say that even though you are allowed to say the bracha in front of the baby, but you should not actually be holding the bris when you make the bracha. However, the minhag by the moelim is that we actually do hold it only because you don't want to make a hefsek. You want to make the bracha and right away do the bris. But that is a discussion that the moelim can have one day. Okay. And this is not about actually seeing the erva. Even if you close your eyes, even someone who is blind, but there is someone there who is not dressed modestly, then it's also forbidden to daven while you're facing. Meaning, if someone's behind you, it's fine. But even if you're not looking at the person, you can't see the person, but the person in front of you, closing your eyes doesn't help. It's just not modest for you. It's also not modest for the davening or for the prayer. Therefore, you should be facing the other way. Halacha 16 talks about the difference obviously between men and women in regards to an erva, and for a woman to see another woman who is not fully dressed modestly is not such a problem, but for a man to see another woman who is not fully covered properly, also that could be a problem, and this makes no difference if it's a person's own wife or another woman. A person should only daven in a place where everyone who is there is fully dressed tznius. The same thing applies also for women who are singing, which we know that kol be'isha erva, that men are not supposed to listen to women singing, to women who are not their first degree relatives, should not be singing in front of them. So if someone is in a place where there are women singing, it's also going to be problematic to daven in that place. Sometimes it's not in our control. Sometimes you say, I can walk into the next room, or I can ask them, hey, can you please stop singing? I want to daven. something that's not a possibility. What if you're in a public place? What if you are in, you're outside somewhere, you're in a park, whatever, and there's the women singing, right? So if you can't stop them, then you should not daven because of it. Sometimes there's another discussion now about women singing, whether it's allowed or whether it's not allowed, and when is it allowed, recordings and things like that, right? So many people say that listening to a recording of a woman singing is different, even though we generally follow the opinion that men don't listen to women singing even on a recording. But what happens if you are in a public place? You're traveling, you're in an airport, you're in a bus station or whatever, train station, and there's a music playing, right? And the women singing, what are you supposed to do? So if you're able to go to a place where it's quieter, you don't hear them, that's better to daven. But if there's no other choice, better to daven than not to daven. So it's not like it's better to daven than not. That's to say clearly. In this regard, it's better to daven and not to say, I'm not going to daven today because I couldn't find a place. So if you're able to go to a place where it's quiet, that's obviously what you do. But if not, it should not hold you back from davening or learning. It just says work extra hard to have extra kavanah and holy things, and try to kind of ignore it and try to really focus on your davening.
Reminds me of the 4 almost. You can't get out of bed because you don't have water.
Right. So don't say, yeah, exactly. I'm in bed all day because my friend's coming back at lunchtime. Maybe not go out. Right. Exactly. Now, talking about talking about in a shul, where today many people come to shuls and not all the women are dressed tznius, right? So one of the ideas of a mechitza today, that we have a separation between men and women, is not only in addition to the idea of men and women sitting separately while we daven, it's also because many women are coming to shul. Obviously, we encourage everyone to come to shul, are not dressed halachically tznius. So therefore, it's an added issue for davening, for men to daven in front of women who are not fully dressed tznius. So therefore, the mechitza also helps for that. So that's just an added idea behind the mechitza in today's shuls. Halacha 17, and then we'll have some questions. If your heart sees your own erva, even if it's covered, for example, you have a robe on. Okay, so this is an interesting concept. We're not talking about others seeing it. You're covered, but your heart sees your erva, which means there's nothing on your body separating your heart and your erva.
So you're not wearing a garter.
Not wearing a garter, you're not wearing pants, you're just wearing a robe. So that's also a problem. And therefore, you're not allowed to say any words of kedusha. You have to wear pants or anything that kind of it touches or separates the top of your body and the bottom of your body. That is, by the way, and this applies, this is only to men, it doesn't apply to women.
What if you're saying like Shema Mitah?
Same thing, Shema, same thing. You're saying words of Torah.
So I'm saying you need that covering between your heart and your.
Yeah, now covering can mean also pants.
About a blanket.
Blanket doesn't count, no.
Most likely, if a person's wearing pajamas, there's an elastic. I'm sorry, I'm speaking, but person's even pajamas has elastic band or something like that. It's usually tight fitting.
You're wearing undergarments also. But if someone is not wearing anything, they're just under a blanket, or all that they are wearing is a long t-shirt or a long robe or a robe, then it won't work.
Okay.
So what you do is you have to put some type of gartel. That's the original source of a gartel, right? What we wear for davening. The gartel is one of the reasons for a gartel is to separate between our heart and our erva. Meaning, it's not like it's not our eyes who see it, but even our heart shouldn't see it. So that's why so back in the day, it was common for people to wear long robes, right? They didn't dress the way we dress today. So that's why it's very important for them to have a separation between their heart and their erva. And this is specifically for men. So that's why even today that we are dressed the way we dress. So it's not a problem halachically. The minhag of Hasidim is we still wear a gartel as an added, preparation for davening and other significance behind it. But the original idea was to separate between our heart and our erva. So that is the simonim of 4 and 5. Hopefully next time we'll move on to 6, where we get into the laws of making brachos, the morning blessings. Questions?
So,
Okay,
question
go
is,
ahead.
I've heard that there are some families somewhere where the Balas advice does not wear a hair covering all the time. You know, it says the beams of the house never saw that the woman's head was uncovered. Okay, some houses are like this. So let's say that a person's wife doesn't have her hair covered momentarily for the moment, okay, and steps within the field of view when you're saying Shema Yisrael. But it's your own wife, okay? So maybe that doesn't mean anything one way or the other. But what you have to do is stop davening. You have to say in sign language, please. You know. So what I'm saying is it a problem? It's not a problem.
It's a great question. Question is about a woman who's dressed tznius, but she's a married woman, and generally married women are supposed to cover their hair, and her hair is uncovered. And does it make a difference if it's your wife or another woman who has uncovered hair? So a woman who is married and not wearing any head covering, not a shaitel or anything like that, that would be a problem to daven directly in front of them if the hair is not covered. If it's your wife, then definitely reason to be makel, to be more lenient. Like I said earlier, we said that if your wife is not fully dressed, tznius, even the husband should not daven in front of them at that time. But for the hair, I see over here that there is definitely reason to be makel. You could be lenient if your wife's hair is not fully covered. But if it's someone else with that, not your wife, then for sure you should not daven in front of them. Okay. Any other questions?
What? Richie, you're slacking.
Okay. So I'll leave you with that. And Mr. Shem, next week we'll continue with the laws of brachos. Take care, Avram and Sarachaya. Thank you for joining.
Thank
Hello,
you.
Ron, sorry,
Wow.
Good night.
All the way on there.
Good night.